Greetings and salutations, friend around the world. This is November Project, the show, yet another episode with our friend James Broad. James Broad, what's happening, my friend?
Sitting in paradise, my friend. I can't really complain.
Yeah. Looks pretty sweet. Looks pretty sweet. So just a bit of a background. We did recording with you a few weeks ago, and a few things have happened since then. And you reached out and you said, let's do another one. We didn't post that one. You're an entrepreneur. You're a yogi. You're a snowboarder. You're also a 6'5", 230-pound black man. And so all those identities give you some privileges, but also take many privileges away. Tell us a little bit how your identity has put you in certain places in life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, first of all, I can say that obviously I'm tremendously blessed to be able to, be back in my happy place here on Nantucket, building something great, with my wife. There's a lot of blessings that come along with being out here, but, we're not out here on chance. A lot of hard work got us here. Tremendously thankful for my parents, who both came from England. My mother's Ghanaian, my dad's English. They came over from England to give me and my family a better life maybe just over 38 years ago. They wanted to bring us here so that we could, make the most of our time, on this planet, whatever that may be. And they didn't really direct us in what we should be doing, but, they gave us parameters around, this is the way that certain things are done. This would be a good path for you, etc. And they made sure to give us building blocks like, education, resiliency, integrity, problem solving, all things that I think have allowed me to take advantage of opportunities that, have been afforded. I work on myself every day. I love who I am, and I'm committed to getting better every day. And, I'm excited to, every year is getting, frankly, more exciting, more challenging in some ways, but I'm excited to see the man I'm turning into, frankly. I have always walked very confidently. I've always made space for myself in whatever room I decided to be in, whether it be the proverbial room of snowboarding or yoga or, really wherever I wanted to be. I made the space for myself, and being 6'5", don't really have to, even if someone doesn't like me, I don't need to own that. I don't need to, if that person verbalizes it to me, they're probably still not even a threat at that point. So I can choose to handle that how I see fit. And a lot of the time, frankly, I just let it go because the lesson doesn't need to be taught at that point. And, that's allowed me to navigate certain situations that would be difficult to do with underlying trauma, generational trauma that I think has affected some Black people in this country. The generational trauma of slavery, of police brutality, that continues to persist at this very moment. I can manage situations where people aren't a direct threat to me, but the great equalizer is the guy with a gun and or law enforcement. And frankly, I don't think that they're well equipped to deal with their own, or have not been trained to be equipped to deal with their own fears and insecurities when it comes to dealing with members of the public that may not look like them. I've unfortunately run into this on more than one occasion. I'm not a perfect person, but when I did encounter law enforcement on a number of times, they were much more heavy-handed than they should have been. And frankly, I think kind of what stirred this conversation was George Floyd. When I heard Gayle King leading up to the story, I knew what was about to happen. I closed my eyes because I didn't want to see it. And I heard George Floyd say that he couldn't breathe, like it was coming out of my own lips. This is, it was difficult. I turned away and I heard him say it, and I was like, I've been there. I've been that man on the ground. And, that may have been the first time in perspective that I really focused on breathing, on, making sure that you focus on taking your next breath. And that isn't in essence yoga. So that was my first thought. My second thought was, Jesus Christ, that was just on the news. That was a public lynching. And while I may not have the perspective of generational trauma, I don't know how else to put it. I have dealt with my own issues with law enforcement that brought me right back to where I was on the ground, struggling for breath. And at some point, like, enough's got to be enough. Can't speak for Gail, but I think after she was obviously watching it live, I don't know that she had watched it before, but I'm pretty sure she had the same reaction to me as, I can't believe we just showed that on TV.
It means a lot to us that you circled back and wanted to take advantage of this platform. Like, for a guy who came to November Project back in 2012, a dude who we've been friends with for so many years, you were on the cover of Runner's World magazine with all of us back in the day. Like, I wanted to spend just like one more second with the George Floyd reaction here, and here's why. I feel really lucky that we can have this conversation. And like we said before we clicked record, if this is emotionally charged, which it is, and it's something you don't want to spend much time on, but I watched the video as well, and it keeps playing, and it's insane that it keeps playing. And for a lot of white people, it's important to see how brutal this is, how real this is.
Right.
You talked about your initial reactions. Have you gone back and seen it again? Does it build in anger? Does it build in sadness? Like, how has your reaction changed? It's been...
Honestly, I haven't watched TV since I've been out here. TV is kind of a space filler, unfortunately. For whatever reason, our sources have really come into question as to what the integrity of the information that we can even, take in. So I haven't watched the news. What I've done is, have some conversations with people like yourselves and some of my other friends to really, with opinions that I value, to understand how I can be of help, because honestly, this isn't something for me to change. I can't change this. I'm not in a position of massive power. This is something where other people need to get on board with this in order to make a change. We've seen this before. My first thing, like, I post content that is basically to inspire, like, people to go out and observe their surroundings. And it's very rarely pictures of me and just me, because frankly, I don't find it all that interesting. Maybe movement, maybe this, but the first thing, like, I was watching this and I'm like, I don't even know how many other people saw this right now. And I posted the hashtag I can't breathe again, because we've seen this before. I knew there was going to be outrage. The reason we're talking now is because I feel like people are opening to listening a little bit more. And frankly, I haven't had this conversation with a lot of people, because it's draining. It's a lot energy wise. It's emotionally a lot to have these conversations, and I don't have the time to have them with everyone. If this is the time that people are going to hear, or if someone knowing me even in passing now can look at this situation with a new perspective, given what they've learned here, then that would be worth it for me. So
do you think that all the hashtags and all the outrage, it seemingly has been happening historically, like you said, I can breathe again, we've been seeing it. Do you feel like this time it's any different?
After our last conversation, I kind of thought long and hard about that. It's like, when is this actually going to be different? And I think, while I haven't watched it, I've seen some stills, and, you see, you just see the still of him, like, on the ground behind this truck. You see one officer doing crowd control, like with it. I wouldn't even say doing crowd control, just with his back turned, no emotion, no understanding of what was going on behind him, but an indifference to what was happening, even with the growing concern of the crowd that someone's being murdered behind you, until a police officer is willing to assess a situation like that. Because frankly, now that they've all been arrested, great, that doesn't bring George Floyd back. A police officer needs to be empowered to address that situation as it's happening, to protect and serve, to save the life of George Floyd so that his family doesn't have to go through this. And that's when I'll know something's changed. Until then, you know, I'm not the only guy that's had these experiences. Frankly, I'm lucky to have survived some of the experiences I have had, because there are a lot, some that we've heard about, some that we haven't heard about, that haven't been as lucky, or have just, you know, ended up in the, you know, hadn't had the resources or family support and ended up in the correctional facilities for the foreseeable future. So, I mean, that's when I'll know. And frankly, this is systemic. Like, this underlying thing is systemic. The emotion is around police brutality because people just watch someone get lynched. Everyone should be able to get on board with this when it is a systemic problem that is affecting literally everyone in some way or another.
James, you said earlier, you know, what can I change? I'm just one guy, you know, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this would agree with you, you know, and you at the exact same time, you're hearing this very politically charged conversation around voting and using your power to vote for white folks that don't see injustices, for white folks that don't see privilege, for folks that are talking about all lives matter and those kinds of things. There is a lot of reading and education to be done on the privileged side.
Yeah.
But then just less than 1 minute ago, you said, you know, this is a systemic thing. Do you think, you know, piggybacking off of Boyan's question, like, do you think this country can change? Do you think this is something that can be over time worked out?
Absolutely. I do. Frankly, if I didn't, I wouldn't be here. You know, I'd go somewhere else. I love being here. I think people can change. And frankly, it's because friends like yourselves, you know, a number of other people, like, you're raising children right now that are going to understand this maybe even better than I did as a child. Well, I can guarantee that as someone that's first generation, you just don't have the perspective. And, you know, my child is going, oh yeah, I'm having a child, kid. Yeah. That one slip out there. Little James is going to be here. So y'all better get ready. Because he's going to be walking tall too. He's going to be walking tall. He's never, you know, and, you know, that's, if it's threatening to some people, then that's something that they're going to have to deal with. And if that person becomes a threat, then, you know, these are things that you deal with appropriately. I'm really hoping that this does spur continued change in an environment where political change is so partisan. Like, I really hope that this can really change, or at least we're not the only ones that are really doing some soul searching around this. And, you know, we're not the only ones that are committed to getting better and to understanding how, you know, this has indirectly or directly affected our lives, or, you know, our friends and family. So
it's really well said. I speak confidently for Boyan and I when I say we appreciate you, we love you, and the experiences that we've all shared building the November Project in Boston, like, incredible. Those are times that we'll tell all of our kids about, and will be some of the most fun of our lives, and it feels really shared. This show as an opportunity to highlight or to elevate a voice or voices. We sometimes have musical guests. It gets weird. We always finish each show with a positive message, or something grounding, or something uplifting, or just really real, you know. And as a yogi, and as someone who sees the world the way you do, adding anything from this conversation or anything you would just like to tell anyone listening to this, and close the show on your terms.
Yeah. I would like to say, for people that may see me here as an abundance of privilege and cannot see beyond that, I would like to give you some tips on how you may potentially be able to, you know, reach for what you're actually looking for. I think part of it is being able to self-assess, see what's working for you, see what doesn't work for you, and get rid of the shit that doesn't work. Some people might say that sounds pretty hippie or yoga or whatever it may be, but if you have not been in a constant stage of self-assessment, either for the past years or in the past month, then you will have a lot of areas that are freeing for you. Once you're able to do that, you may find that you have freedom and space for other things. When you have that freedom and space, you may reprioritize things and be able to start saying yes to that opportunity and yes to that opportunity and say, fuck it, let's try that opportunity. And then like magic happens, right? And it doesn't come from a place of being scared or worrying about like, you know, it doesn't come from a place of fear. It comes from a place of exploration and being confident and making room for yourself where you need it. And frankly, not giving too much energy to people that can't understand it, don't need to understand it, don't want to understand it, whatever reason it may be. And just kind of go write it, go write your own story. You know, I have had the TV off because I've had the opportunity to sit here to fill my time with just listening to the waves, you know. So I guess that may be an appropriate way to kind of end it off. I don't know. Can you hear that?
Yeah, I think you're just rubbing it in now.
Can you hear any of that?
No.
Well, put on your wave machine. It sounds great.
James, you're a fantastic dude. Thank you so much. We really love you and appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate. Yeah, go for it.
I will always remember the conversation that you and I had off the camera. It shook me to my core, and I'm hoping that you coming on camera and saying these things brings it closer to a lot of folks who may think, oh, this is not happening.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of people that know you, a lot of people that appreciate you, and if it's happening to you with all the sums of the people of the experiences and the person that you are, if it still can happen to you, then imagine all the things that are happening to people that may not be as blessed and as privileged as you are, and definitely not as Brogan and I maybe as just white dudes. So
well,
really,
you guys have an opportunity to use, you know, something that you've built that's really awesome for literally anything. And I appreciate you, you know, wanting to understand more about this subject, and then wanting the people that, you know, look up to you and November Project and the lives that you're changing, you want them to understand this and change for the better. And I appreciate that, because frankly, that's how my son is going to be able to walk around without fear, you know, or I don't know, without baggage. Let's not baggage. Yeah, without the baggage. So, and I think we can get there. So I'll be out here figuring it out.
Appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much.
You guys are awesome, man. I love you guys a ton.
Love you too.